'Tis the season of college commencement addresses, and former Secretary of State Rex Tillerson just dropped the mic with what the kids might call some low-key shade aimed squarely at the president.
If our leaders seek to conceal the truth, or we as people become accepting of alternative realities that are no longer grounded in facts, then we as American citizens are on a pathway to relinquishing our freedom.
What kind of truth-concealing and alternative realities is he referring to, you might ask? How about tweets like these from Trump this morning? Despite the disgusting, illegal, and unwarranted witch hunt, we've had the most successful first 17-month administration in U.S. history by far. Sorry to the fake news media and haters, but that's the way it is. Our president is referring there to the Russia investigation, which, as I'm sure you know, officially hit the one-year mark under Robert Mueller today, prompting calls from around the administration to call it quits.
In the interest of the country, I think it's time to wrap it up.
They should do it today. I mean, as soon as possible. I think that they have the facts from which they can write their report.
And indeed, they have even a few more facts to look into as of yesterday, stemming from that whole Michael Cohen porn star payment debacle. But before we get to that, here's a little refresher on how this whole thing has unfolded so far. On January 12th, yes, hard to believe, just 4 months ago, the Wall Street Journal first reported that Trump's personal attorney, Michael Cohen, paid porn actress Stormy Daniels to sign a non-disclosure agreement about her relationship with Trump. On February 13th, Michael Cohen admitted to the New York Times that he made the payment, but said he did so out of his own pocket after taking out a home loan. On March 6th, Daniels, whose real name is Stephanie Clifford, filed a lawsuit seeking to void the NDA because Trump didn't sign it. And on March 25th, Clifford gave the 60 Minutes interview that had everybody watching.
I was in a parking lot going to a fitness class with my infant daughter, and a guy walked up on me and said to me, "Leave Trump alone, forget the story." And then he leaned around and looked at my daughter and said, "A beautiful little girl, it'd be a shame if something happened to her mom."
Then, on April 5th, as he stood on Air Force One, a reporter asked Trump about what he knew.
Did you know about the $130,000 payment to Stormy Daniels?
I'm not done. On April 9th, the FBI raided Michael Cohen's office and home, and on May 2nd, Rudy Giuliani spoke out.
It's not campaign money. No campaign finance violation. So
they funneled it through the law firm.
Funneled through the law firm, and the president repaid it.
To which Trump responded the next day on Twitter that Cohen was paid just a monthly retainer, and now to present day, and a financial disclosure form just given to the Office of Government Ethics, signed by Trump, showing a more than $100,000 repayment to Cohen for, quote, third-party expenses, which was not included in any previous filing. Information the acting director of the Ethics Office passed right on to the Department of Justice, quote, because you may find the disclosure relevant to any inquiry you may be pursuing. Exhausted? So am I. I'm joined now by Lisa Lerer, national politics reporter for the Associated Press and a Harvard Neiman fellow. You thought I was going to never stop talking. I know, I can tell. And attorney Bruce Singal, who worked alongside Bob Mueller in the U.S. Attorney's Office in Boston and was named 2017 Massachusetts Lawyers Weekly Lawyer of the Year. Bruce, it's good to see you again, too. By definition, the story of Stormy Daniels and Cohen and Trump, I don't use this word much, is an endless succession of lies, in my estimation, but by all parts, not by Daniels, or I don't know, but I'm talking about by the president and his lawyer. Do you think any laws were broken in that escapade?
Well, I think that depends on following the money, like everything else. And there are indications we've seen that some of the money that went into the account of the entity that Cohen set up to pay Daniels and for other purposes came from Russian-linked sources. And it all comes back to Russia, and it all comes back to money.
When you read Walter Schaub, who's the guy I was referring to, was a former Office of Government Ethics director, both under Obama and a little bit of Trump, tweeted last night, "This is tantamount to a criminal referral. OG has effectively reported the president to DOJ, the Department of Justice, for potentially committing a crime." What's your reaction to what Schaub had to say?
My reaction is that a referral for consideration of whether a crime was committed is more than appropriate in this case, and it should be investigated. I don't think he's made any preordained conclusions, nor would Mueller or the people in Manhattan who are investigating it, but well worth looking into.
I'm not asking you from polling data, but just your own sense of the world. Does anybody care about this other than, I mean, if you can't stand what Donald Trump has done, you're enraged. If you support Donald Trump, it's, you know, it's Trump being Trump, and his lawyer is sort of this fixer doing what he does. Is this moving anybody's mind about anything?
Well, I think it does add to this narrative that this is a White House that is sort of in chaos, that isn't in control, that is besieged by these scandals and various things. I mean, part of the problem here for Mueller is there is a timeline. The American people really only have so much patience for this kind of an investigation, even though this is you know, he's further along in indictments, I think, than where Watergate was or where they were with the Clinton administration investigations. We have seen the start of a decline in terms of people standing behind the work and supporting the investigation in the numbers.
But doesn't that pop up once he comes out with his report, indictment, whatever he does? Even if it ebbs, isn't it going to rise once he
It may.
says
I
something?
mean, the big question here is how this all comes in with the midterms, right? And I think there's a long practice of Justice Department lawyers not bringing charges or bringing these kinds of things too close to elections, right? Of course, Comey didn't do that with Hillary Clinton. That's certainly, I'm sure, weighing on Mueller's mind. And so does he do it before? Does he wait? Does he come out with it afterwards? Like, when does this report come? How close is it to the midterms? What does that look like?
Well, it may not
It's
even
a
be
key
close. I mean,
political
you
question.
mentioned Whitewater.
Yeah, it could be
Iran,
years from now.
Contra,
Right.
Watergate were more than 4 years till they were concluded in all three instances. Today is just day one. When you hear Giuliani and Mike Pence say, okay, let's wrap it up today, boys, what's your reaction to this?
Hired mouthpieces. 1 year is a minute in time. The Lawrence Walsh Iran-Contra investigation as special counsel took 8 years, actually. And Ken Starr's took 4.5 years. So, and this is more complicated. This is a far-flung enterprise internationally that they're looking into.
But does it matter if he's right and people are tired? I mean, there's some interesting polling that was done by CNN. Let me pull it up. How do you feel about Trump's handling of the Russia investigation? Overwhelmingly, people disapprove, 55 to 31. But how do you feel about Mueller's handling? A bare plurality, 44 to 38, which lends some credence to the notion that we may not be like the way Trump's dealing with this, but we're not crazy about the Mueller part of it either.
Well, I'll give you another poll result that shocked me, and that is the poll that showed that 53% of Americans believe that the Mueller investigation is politically influenced versus 44% who said no. That shocked me because people who think they're, legal big shots or something sit there and say, oh, Trump says no collusion, fake, witch hunt, all that. Meanwhile, the support for his position that it's politically influenced is growing faster than support for Trump, which is still in the low 40s.
So he's succeeding with it. I mean, the tweet he tweeted out this morning, just on that note, we are now in the second year of the greatest witch hunt in American history. There's still no collusion, no obstruction. The only collusion that was done by Democrats who were unable to win an election despite spending far more money.
And the politics matter greatly here because because of the sense that Giuliani was out saying this week, and there is a growing sense that Mueller does not feel that they can bring an indictment against a sitting president. So that means he pushes out a report, and then we're talking about potential impeachment. And that is a political process that is all politics. It's what party is in power in Congress, and it's what the voters want to see from those congressmen.
And if there's a serious bill of particulars, the assumption I would make is it came out before November, there'd be no impeachment proceedings.
Right.
If it came out after November, if the Democrats pick up 60-plus seats, there probably will be an impeachment proceeding. Is that a fair?
I think that's fair in the House, but then you get to the Senate, and what does the Senate look like, and how close is it? And I think it's a 60-vote margin in the Senate, and the politics get complicated, and I think where the public is on this investigation matters a lot.
Well, there was
for
another
that
guy
reason.
who was impeached but not convicted, too,
Right.
so that's not
Right.
the... when you hear Rudy Giuliani say, who I would argue has totally embarrassed himself, if maybe worse, he says, we know from the Mueller people that they don't believe they have the power to indict. Now, it is true in the Nixon and Clinton cases, internal memos said that we don't have the power to indict the Justice Department. Do you buy the Giuliani story, though?
Well, I assume he had some conversation with someone on the Mueller team somewhere along the lines he described. I mean, what we do know is there are two opinions of the Office of Legal Counsel of the Justice Department that concluded...
They were Nixon and Clinton, right?
Yes, yeah, and they concluded that there is constitutionally... you cannot indict a president, a sitting president, and you cannot prosecute a sitting president. Now, no court has rendered an opinion on it. There are very distinguished scholars who disagree with that, and the Supreme Court, the U.S. Supreme Court, has said no man or no person is above the law. So how you square or reconcile those remains to be seen.
The bottom line, it'll never be over. Nice to see you.
Nice to see
Be well.
you.
Great to see you.
Thank you, Jim.
Appreciate
Thanks.
your time.